Going Bowser, Sephiroth, and Super Saiyan KO Canon, and them best believe that when I'm done, they know that I ain't playing with them anymore. I'm going Kamehameha and shit. Destructiveness, I ain't the one to fuck with. What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SBMTG on the YouTube.com. Down there, we enjoy magic. Today, I'm going to show you how to top 8 a Grand Prix, no joke, for as little money as possible. Here's Red-Green Pummeler. Back again. That's right, Red-Green Pummeler's back. It's totally a deck again now. It's been a deck ever since Kaladesh came out, but we haven't seen much of it on the competitive scene, but it just came out of nowhere sort of over the weekend to get top 8s in not only Grand Prix Amsterdam, but also Grand Prix Manila. So it top 8'd 2 Grand Prix, and those are big events too. Grand Prix are no joke. So the deck is looking very real right now. And the best part about it is that as of the recording of this video, the deck is like only $125 on TCG Player. Might spike a little bit because of its performance over the weekend, but you can get to it quickly. You can get it for $125, not bad. And you might be able to get it for a little less than 125 if you don't mind getting like lightly played or moderately played cards. So deck is not too expensive, and it's probably the most bang for your buck in standard as far as results for your dollar. So let's give the thing a look, because there's probably never been a better time to pummel fools. Well, the deck starts with play sets of 3 different 2-drops that all generate energy in some form or fashion. And before I show them to you, a quick note here. That's right, it starts with 2-drops. We're not playing Greenbelt Rampager in the 1 slot here, which surprised me a little bit, but these guys are the professionals, so I'll let them do it. They know better than I do. So here's your 2-drop suite here. We're going to play 4 copies of Voltaic Brawler, 4 copies of Servant of the Conduit, and 4 copies of Longtusk Cub. Well, none of these necessarily need introduction at this point. Voltaic Brawler, just a solid 2-drop that can be 4 power really easily, brings energy with him when he hits the battlefield. All that's good. Servant of the Conduit also brings energy with it when she comes down, can help us get to a Bristling Hydra on turn 3. That's a really important play, especially considering it lets us play Bristling Hydra underneath 3-mana counter spells when we're on the play. So Servant of the Conduit, not only can she ramp you, but she also lets you play more spells in a turn. Really important for a deck that's trying to go as fast as possible, and fixes our mana on top of all that. And is a 2-power thing sometimes. I mean, all the uses for Servant will play the playset, obviously. And then Longtusk Cub, probably one of the, just as far as standard results, the best of these 2-drops, honestly. You know, it's in all the green-black snake decks, all the green-black energy decks, too. Because it can just get really big quickly, and it's a great way to spend your energy. Just, you know, a 2-mana investment for what will almost always end up as a 3-power guy or 4-power guy. You know, we're not playing snake here, so it's not going to be 6-power. Usually, but this can easily be just a 2-mana investment for a 3 or 4-power guy, and that's great every time. I've already name-dropped this guy, so I might as well go ahead and tell you that we're playing a whole playset of Bristling Hydra in the deck, because it is that good right now. Bristling Hydra is just so crazy, especially if we can get it down ramped on the play. The card is just absolutely bonkers right now. Just don't underestimate how good Bristling Hydra actually is. 4 mana is a crazy investment for something that is nearly impossible to remove. The deck is going to play a sort of surprise 2 copies of Rhonas the Indomitable here. You know, I'm happy to see him, though. I've had high praise for this card before. If you guys saw the Red-Green Gods deck, I had a lot of good things to say about him there. And he serves more or less the same function here. You know, this is a red-green creatures deck. So it's not quite the same build or anything, but it's close for the purposes we'll be using Rhonas for. In this deck, he's a great top deck. You know, we're only playing 2 copies, so we're not going to see him all the time. He's a great top deck in the late game. Excellent mana sink for when we flood, or if we just draw him on turn 7. You know, he can be an excellent finisher, too. He can be great to play on turn 3 into a turn 4 Bristling Hydra. That turn sequence is very, very real, too. So whether you're drawing him late or you're playing him early and playing around him early, there's definitely a lot of good things you can do with a Rhonas in this deck. And I don't begrudge the 2-of inclusion at all. He seems pretty much perfect. But here's the big cheese right here. 4 whole copies, of course, of Electrostatic Pummeler. The old EP, I call him Sabin, to be pummeling fools. FF6 jokes. It is not hard at all in this deck to get this guy to 5 power. We've got a couple of pump spells that give creatures plus 4 power. So we get him to 5 power, all we have to do is double his power twice, and we're swinging for 20. It's, again, not hard at all to pull off in this deck. Card hits really fast. It can sometimes kill as early as turn 4. But even if this deck didn't play Pummeler, it would still be a pretty good energy deck. But the ability to just come out of nowhere and hit for over 20 is pretty crazy. If your opponent can't do anything about this, they're going to lose the game. Oh, and last thing I want to point out, by the way, is that in this build of the deck, we have Rhonas, which we've never had to play with Electrostatic Pummeler before. It's pretty sweet, because you can just pump up Electrostatic Pummeler with Rhonas and then double his power. Pretty dirty. On to the spells here. I might as well go ahead and clue you into the 4 copies of Attune with Aether, because you knew it was going to happen. You knew it was going to happen. We're not playing the 1-drop Greenbelt Rampager, but we'll definitely be playing this on turn 1. If we end up getting it, it's a guaranteed extra land drop. That's cool. It's just 2 free energy, which is mostly what we're using it for. It lets us play fewer lands, I'll be saying the same things about Attune with Aether for the next 1.5 years here. So get used to it. Attune is just a fantastic card. There's no getting around it. The deck is also going to play just 3 copies of Harness Lightning, Eyebrow Raise. You'd think there'd be 4 copies in the deck. Right now, at least these lists, the deck only plays 3 copies of Harness. It's because it doesn't need it that much. We're, again, mostly focused on offense, but if nothing else, this is 2 mana for free energy, which we will take. It can also just, blow up a creature in the early game so that we can get through with our dudes. There's obviously reasons why we'd play a Harness Lightning, but we're mostly focused on offense. But again, that doesn't keep us from playing a card. Now, the rest of the main deck here is literally all pump spells. Every single other card is a pump spell. So let me go ahead and show you our pump suite so we can pump you up here. We're going to play 4 copies of Blossoming Defense, 4 copies of Invigorated Rampage, and 2 copies of Larger Than Life. Well, for my money, Blossoming Defense is still the best 3 of these. I think it's one of the best cards, or best green cards at least, in the entire format. Just 1 mana for +2/+2 at instant speed is almost giant growth, and I will take that all the time. Combat trick that either lets creatures trade or survive in combat when your opponent didn't think they would, It boosts creatures, you can get a little extra damage in. It's a net +4/+4 with Electrostatic Pummeler. Just all for 1 mana, you basically get to play a green counter spell that pumps your guys. Just Blossoming Defense deserves that $1 price tag. It's just, again, I'll put my money on it there. One of the best green cards in the whole format. I love me some Blossoming Defense. So we'll play all 4 there. The 4 copies of Invigorated Rampage, also pretty sweet. I like that we can split the, the +4 here. We can go +2/+0 to one guy, +2/+0 to another. That's super awesome depending on who gets blocked and who doesn't, Or sometimes we can just give our Pummeler 8 power, which is pretty sweet too for just the 2 mana. Larger Than Life can also give 8 power to our Pummeler, but it's sorcery speed, so it's not as high priority in this deck. But it's definitely worth noting it can make your Pummeler really big, really, really fast, or it can just make any of your creatures huge. Voltaic Brawler is swinging for 8 all of a sudden. Even Servant of the Conduit can swing for 6, which is just crazy. So it's purely offensive. We can't use it as a combat trick on our opponent's turn or anything. That kind of sucks, but the fact that it's +4/+4 and can make any of our creatures into a huge threat, yeah, we'll play that. We'll play that. Here's your mana base here. There's 21 lands in both decks over the weekend, but their mana bases were slightly different. The other deck didn't play the 4 Sheltered Thicket. I was a little surprised that this one did, but in both decks, as long as you play 21 lands and you play more untapped green sources on turn 1 than you do red sources, you'll be fine. You need to attune with Aether on turn 1, and if you can attune with Aether on turn 1 or play Servant of the Conduit on turn 2, then you've presumably got red mana from that point on. So we don't quite need as much red mana. Focus on green when you're building this mana base. Here's your sideboard right here. We're going to play 4 Magma Spray and another Harness Lightning there against, creature-based decks. Makes plenty of sense. Get stuff out of the way so we can swing in, and we want to do it for as cheap as possible. That's why all 4 Magma Sprays. And, we can get rid of zombies and scrap heaps, too. So that's important. And we're going to play the 3 Manglehorn, which I wouldn't mind if it was 4, but 3 Manglehorn at least against Aetherworks Marvel decks, and the odd, Harness or Heart of Kieran or Scrap Heap Scrounger. It's important against those too. Rhonas the Indomitable for a mid-range option. Same thing with Chandra, Torch of Defiance, which could find her way into the main deck, but game 1, we're trying to go as fast as possible, and a 4-mana Planeswalker could really screw up that steez. So we're going to play her in the sideboard, bring her in against decks that we have a little bit more breathing room against, decks where we don't have to just go as quickly as possible and kill them before they spin an Ulamog out. We'll probably play that Chandra, and if we can resolve her against control, she's ridiculous. And speaking of control, we'll finish off the board with 4 copies of Prowling Serpopard. We went all in against control here. All 4 copies of Serpopard. I love that. Now, I'm not going to assign power rankings to either of these decks here. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it, so I haven't gotten in game 1 with either of the decks from the weekend, I have played Red-Green Pummeler a lot in the past, but I haven't played this particular build or the other build from the weekend, and I haven't played it, in this format against these decks at all. So I wouldn't feel comfortable putting power rankings here at all, but I will say that from my previous experience with the deck and sort of what I can glean from this format, it does look pretty good right now. Again, there's not much removal removal, and that's because there's not that many early game creatures. We got a lot of decks right now that are just kind of trying to do their own thing. Mostly, obviously, Teamer Marvel is just trying to sort of goldfish and play Puzzle Knots and things like Attune with Aether until it gets to its turn for Marvel and can go ahead and spin it immediately. There's not a whole lot of creatures in that deck, you know. It's got Rogue Refiners, but even Whirler Virtuosos are getting cut from that deck. I saw a version over the weekend that played one Whirler Virtuoso. So creatures are getting cut from that deck left and right. You know, it just doesn't play a whole bunch of them. And we've got Blue-Red Control, which doesn't play a bunch of creatures. It does play a fair amount of removal and counter spells, but we can go underneath that deck for the most part. So with a heavy creature-based strategy right now, we're looking at naked boards from like probably 40% of the field at least. You know, so we can get in with Pummeler, a huge dude, very, very easily some of the time. And even if we don't draw a Pummeler, we can still get in with like Voltaic Brawlers, Bristling Hydras, Longtusk Cubs, which will be 4/4s before you know it, you know. This deck hits extremely fast, and that's valuable in the current format. And by the way, the other best thing about this deck, there's like 3 best things about the deck. It doesn't cost that much, only about $125 for a really competitive deck. And it is really competitive. That's the second thing. You know, the deck had extremely good results over the weekend, so it does have game. And the third thing about it is, I don't know if you noticed, but not a single one of the cards in this list, except for some of the lands, will rotate in the fall, you know. And some people are really wigged out about rotation. And I've been telling people, rotation's like 5 months away, you know. That's a long time. We only had Cat Combo in the format for like 2.5 months. Cat Combo was not in the format for that long in the scheme of things. We've got twice as long as Cat Combo was in the format until we get a rotation. So I wouldn't start freaking out just yet, but in case you are, you could go ahead and buy this deck and play it for legit a year and a half. So, except for a couple of lands, literally nothing rotates, and that's worth noting. And the last thing I'm going to say about this deck before I get to the outro here is, yeah, no fling. But if you wanted to make the deck even more budget just for F&M purposes, you could even cut the 2 Chandras, and that's like $40 almost that you don't have to spend. That brings the deck down to a respectable like $85. But for my money, by the way, before I stop talking about fling, because I like talking about fling, for my money, best thing you can do in this format is Ravenous Intruder, which we're definitely working on. Going to have that out soon. But I'm tapped out for talking about this deck right now. Let me know how you feel about it in the comments. Is it real right now? That's the real question. Is it real? Or for the last month of the format, will we respond to these GP results by playing more creatures and stuff? Is the deck lost in the shuffle? Is Green-Black Snake or Green-Black Energy just a better deck than this? There's a lot of questions, but I do think the deck has a ton of game right now and can at least win you your F&M. You're getting some packs. But what are we doing next time, as usual? Well, I'm working on a few things. You guys already know there's another Wrap Deck Tech in the works. If you don't know, now you know. Another Wrapping Deck Tech. I've got that pegged at about 3 weeks, if I can pull that off. But I'm looking at about 3 weeks until that comes out. And a couple of other things. I still want to do the 1v1 Commander deck that's not Baral. If you guys know, 1v1 Commander Baral is kind of a big deal. I want to beat Baral, and I want to do it on a relative budget. So I want to show you my 1v1 Commander deck soon. But, big thing here, I did Mono Blue Junk Rares the other day, and a lot of you took offense in the comments. You're like, it should be Bulk Rares, because Junk Rares implies that they're bad. We've just always called them Junk Rares. It's sort of a tongue-in-cheek term. You know, around all of my Magic buddies. But anyway, in the comments of the Mono Blue Junk Rares video, you guys, a lot of you said that you wanted to see that with all the colors. You want to see bulk rares in all the colors, you know, and I'm more than willing to do that. I'm already working on it. So my question to you is, which color do you want to see first? We've already done Mono Blue Junk Rares. You haven't seen it, go check it out. Link in the description. But what color of the other 4 would you like to see first? Let me know. That's all I've got for now. If you enjoyed the video, hit thumbs up. It puts it in more people's recommended feeds, and that helps me and doesn't take you that much time. But if you got an extra second, you can always check out our Patreon. It's just patreon.com/SBMTG. If you pledge like $1, you get to know what deck techs are coming out before they come out. So that's kind of cool. Check that out. Or you can follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev, and I'm pretty sure that's all the YouTube spiel. But anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, my wizards.